I wanted to transition a little bit. We all know you as an amazing entertainer, but you also have had an interesting civic life, a political life. You wanted to be in politics in California. Can you tell, I think it seems obvious to us now why you would feel passionate about that, about civil rights, but what made you want to pursue both a career in entertainment but also this sort of civic lifestyle, political lifestyle?
Well, the theater's been my personal passion from the time I was a child. I was a show-off performing kid. My parents' guests had to endure. You know, I learned Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. You want me to sing it for you? You know, that sort of thing. When I was a teenager and I started reading civics books and discussing American history in history classes, I thought of my childhood, and it didn't quite jibe. And so I sat down and talked with my father about that. And I was very blessed in having a father who was willing to discuss the internment experience, because so many Japanese American parents of my generation, of their generation, were reluctant to talk about the internment experience. It's sort of like someone who's raped. The woman who's raped finds it very painful to talk about that experience. And Japanese Americans who were adults during the Second World War find it very difficult to talk about when they were suspected of treachery, spying, treason, simply because of our heritage and the way we looked. And so they didn't talk about it, but my father did. And I was an idealistic young teenager, and there is no one more arrogant than an idealistic teenager.
You heard it here first.
I challenged my father, and we had many intense discussions, and there are many words and comments that I made that I regret to this day. But what I remember most from that is my father saying both the strength and the weakness of American democracy is in the fact that it's a people's democracy, as great as a people can be, but as fallible as people are. And that's why we have to be actively engaged in the democratic process to try to hold democracy's feet to the fire. And before I could even vote, my father, who was a great admirer of Adlai Stevenson, who was running for president at that time, he took me to the Stevenson headquarters, and he volunteered me. I wasn't the volunteer. But it was also a lot of fun. And political campaign is very theatrical. There's a lot of activity and energy, and there's also suspense, and it's building to a climax, and then it's either great elation or black tragedy, you know. The world has come to an end. Our candidate lost, you know, and I was often with the losing candidate. Adlai Stevenson, you know, he didn't make it. And, but both the excitement and the theatricality of a political campaign and of the importance of citizen participation was something that was ingrained in me by my father. And both my brother and I ran for student body offices, and we were both student body presidents. And I was active in the civil rights movement, and later the movement to get redress for Japanese Americans for the unjust incarceration. And currently I'm actively engaged in equality for lesbians, gays, bisexual, and transgender people, because this is all interrelated. Yeah. We're talking about equality and justice for all people. And our democracy does work. Sometimes it takes a long time. There was a time when the people that articulated the ideals of American democracy kept other human beings as slaves. But today we have an African American as the President of the United States. I mean, it's an epic struggle you know, the Jim Crow years, the civil rights movement, and all that. But we are making progress.
Well,
And
speaking of, you just mentioned Barack Obama. How important do you think his comments about gay marriage are? I mean, he said he agrees with it personally, but that hasn't led to legislation.
He believes in federalism, each state to its own. You know, when we dealt with separate but equal education, and the Supreme Court ruled that that's the rule of the land, every state in the Union had to abide by that ruling. That's the rule of the country. And I would like our president, if he's going to make that kind of statement, to be a genuine leader and say that it's going to be the law of the land throughout the country. I have a feeling that it will be happening sooner than we think. We had marriage equality in California in 2008. Our Supreme Court ruled that that is constitutional and it's the rule of the state. And so my husband and my partner up to that time, Brad Altman, and I got married. And Brad has legally changed his name now to Takei. He's Brad Takei.
Beautiful last name.
He likes it.
Their vows are online. They're very beautiful. It was a really nice wedding.
Well, thank you. And so, you know, I think that it's important that we all be actively engaged because our democracy needs change agents to bring about change, to make our democracy a better, truer democracy. And Allegiance is one of those efforts. We founded a museum called the Japanese American National Museum that tells the story of the Japanese American experience, particularly focused on the internment. And we send exhibits throughout the country. So I've been active in the political arena, but also in social and cultural arenas to all dedicated to the effort to make our democracy a better, truer, more equal, more just democracy.